JB here. Friday, June 13th, 3:30. Really quick rant. Markets are lower. S&P is down about 1.2% right near the pretty much the lows of the day. Uh, yeah, all on the heels of this geopolitical tensions, right? So Israel launched the attack overnight, and now Iran is responding. Three separate waves. I make some jokes about it. It's like, of course, hardship, people losing their lives, all that stuff. That I mean, it's probably not something to joke about. So I do apologize. I don't want to offend anybody or what have you. Uh, but you can't control it, right? So control what you can control. So it's just crazy that Israel strikes overnight. There's no social media posts or whatever, and then Iran's responding and it says 100 missiles are headed to Israel shortly. And it's like, so sometimes it's like the last time with the back and forth when Israel assassinated that leader or whatever, and then Iran sent 100 drones or whatever that was. It was all telegraphed and like, are you watching this really in real time? But uh, we'll see if things are different this time. I mean, you have reports too that the U.S. is helping defend this attack, but that's what they did last time, right? So it's more the Iron Dome, and Iron Dome's somewhat financed by the U.S. as well. So it's more the defense stuff. It's not like U.S. planes are in Iran airspace attacking. I mean, well, I don't know, right? I'm not, I don't have all the information, but you see some posts on FinTwit, and people think that it's pulling U.S. into war. But I don't think any of that will escalate unless it's somewhere outside the Israeli territory, right? And it's in an offensive situation, not a defensive thing where they're trying to shoot down the missiles or drones from Iran. So hopefully we'll get some resolution. I don't know, maybe over the weekend that there was supposed to be talks between the U.S. and Iran, like the sixth round of talks. That looks like it got canceled, but maybe it gets back put on the table if this kind of like simmers a little bit. Maybe supposedly Israel, it's just day one of multiple days of attacks. Who knows what this all looks like? But just hope it doesn't escalate too much. Like I was saying on the rant this morning, I mean, people, every time there's tension in the Middle East, it's all about oil prices, right? And then people think this is like 1970, where the reliance on oil, number one, reliance on oil, period, is critical. And number two, the reliance on oil from the Middle East is critical. So, I mean, not saying it won't disrupt things. I mean, trucks, transportation, plastic, everything is still has a big part with oil, but the world's a little different now, right? Similar to what happened with the great financial crisis in 2008. Everybody talks about 2008 happening again, but it's like things have changed since then. Things have been learned. There's market limits and stops and uh, reserves that bank have to hold, and all these things that I've learned over time. So my hope is that this doesn't escalate into something bigger over the weekend. Things can kind of get simmered down a little bit, and maybe cooler heads prevail. And then we come out of this with Iran not having the capabilities to launch nuclear weapons, right? I mean, so we'll see how this all plays out. The thing is, and I was saying it this morning on Watch This too, it seems like when we've had these events, it's happened over the weekend. And then you have these 2-3% down days on overnight on the futures, makes it hard to sleep, right? And then everything gets worked out, right? So I can't find that chart I had this morning in regards to geopolitical events that have happened where the markets have performed. But here's another one, and just hope it's like a one-off, and markets can find their footing. It's funny, like no one's talking about tariffs, trade war right now, right? And here it is, the market's somewhat resilient. I mean, here we are off the April liberation lows, so somewhat in a bull market territory, and the SPY's down here at 596. So areas I'm watching, I have to update my annotations. Typically, one day I'll have to do a chart so you can understand how I do my charts. But I put annotations a lot to support resistance, right? It's history lessons or charts. So I need to see, especially when it comes to the SPY, I need to see certain levels get hit a couple times before I put them into support resistance. So that 597 has been a key spot. And now you look, maybe 591.50. We hit those lows back in May, and then I think the first day or two of June. So if we do break and we don't hold 597 here today, 591.50 is kind of the next big spot. And we're actually, looks like we might hit lows here in a second on the SPY. Uh, and also with anything you think, if the geopolitical situation escalates a little bit, it just puts more pressure on the Fed to cut rates, right? So I'm not saying that's bullish, but all right, so that's kind of the overall market. So now just some quick individual names. And, RH this morning, I was looking right at the open. The spreads were insane on the calls. I was looking for a bounce. It was like 211, 212. And then finally, once the spreads tightened, I was looking at the 235s and the 237.50s, 240s. So I got some spec calls. Sure enough, gets all the way to 220, breaks over 221, and then just can't break through. And then the sellers just came in, and that was that. So You look at the chart on RH, still not bad. I don't know if I'll revisit it next week. I'll certainly have an eye on it. You have to think like, what has changed with RH? I mean, there uh, there was tariff concerns, growth concerns, inventory concerns, recession concerns, right? Everybody was all worried about a recession, and you take a look at a high-end retailer. Typically, they see some of it an impact, right? But they're like the last ones to really get see an impact because they have it's more luxury items, right? And also with the housing market, right? People when they buy new homes, typically if they're upgrading, they need more furniture. They need to furnish more rooms, beds, sofas, whatever you want to call it. So that was a disappointing start to the day. And then, I was watching Visa and I had Visa on the watch list while I'm watching RH. Visa tanked right after the open. So then, my thoughts on Visa and MasterCard. I still don't get how they are party processors, right? And so they're pretty much they don't take on the risk of debt, so they don't do the credit cards, right? They don't reap the rewards of charging high interest either, or the fees, the late fees, and all that fun stuff. No, they just take a chunk of transactions on both sides, right? And then guarantee the transaction. That's what they're the processor. So when I've had this rationale for I don't know how long it's been, 5 to 7 years maybe, and especially as Bitcoin became prevalent back 2014, 15, is that at some point you have to think this gets disrupted, right? It's like easy money. It's like the real estate transactions with the real estate agents. I'm not saying those there shouldn't be, but they shouldn't be at the cost that they have. So when these and especially look at American Express has those higher processor fees, when there's systems that come out that can do the same thing that Visa, MasterCard do, but kind of less fees, no fees, little fees. At some point it's got to disrupt it, and those fees got to come down for Visa, MasterCard. Visa, MasterCard have already been trying to get out the limelight, and I think Visa was actually acquired Chime before there was FTC ruling monopoly, and then they had to nix that buyout or whatever. So they're still in a position because they have lots of cash, still lot of earnings, but at some point you have to think there's some chink in the armor, right? So that's why I went and got some spec puts. I was looking at the puts into next week, but they were insanely priced. So we'll see what happens next week. I'm not saying this is the start of it, but what do they say? Always, never wrong, just early. Maybe the year is 2050 and Visa finally starts to show signs of cracking. I don't know, and there's always been cycles, whether it be the Sears Roebucks, even the IBMs, but IBM has come to life where there's companies that used to be behemoths that aren't anymore, right? And a lot of it's because disruption and or changing the way of human behavior. I At some point I think these Visa MasterCards, not saying they go away, but opportunity. So I played it back with Liberation Day. I was able to play some nice trades on Visa and MasterCard. I'll continue to look for those ones, especially if there's weakness next week. That's that. Um, and then Joby Archer. Archer's trading right at $10. I was looking for some strikes, but I'm like, doesn't make sense. I'm sure I'll get another opportunity. Well, I'm not sure. Nothing's certain, but I think there'll be another opportunity to get some calls. So even if it is up a little bit on Monday, I really like that one now, especially after its offering. And the fact that it's kind of holding its ground. It is down 15%, but all things relative. And then Solar Edge. So, Solar Edge, monster move after the first tax bill showed that the credit's going to be in there and subsidies and all that stuff. Then the new revamped tax bill came out showing that there was going to be quicker than expected expiration on some of the incentives and tax incentives and build out deals that were supposed to happen for green energy. So you saw at first, for solar calls, I don't know if I had them and sold them or whatever, but that went bonkers. Solar Edge went bonkers. And then the tax bill came out and they revamped it. So, it's been a tough one. It was all the way up to 2260 back in the big run up a couple weeks ago, and then it sold off. And then boom, once it hit 2260 again today, I start looking at my freebie 30 calls. So I had the 30 calls, if you don't remember, a couple weeks ago. I actually averaged down on them, and then the next a couple days later, I was able to sell some out for a couple 100%, and then I held the rest. And then sure enough, we had that news, and then boom, that was that. But it's back to life. The calls were almost a double for a little while ago. And then I was looking for other positions to take advantage of resumption next week. So I went and got those July strikes. And I don't, some of this has to be folks worrying about oil. Back in the day, especially when First Solar was kind of still new and some of these solar names, there weren't many of them, but they used to go bonkers when oil prices were high, right? It almost traded similar to what gold used to do with the US dollar. US dollar stronger, gold would go down, things like that. When you had oil prices going up, people would say, oh, alternative energy. And you would have, this is back when corn, ethanol, whatever was going to be the next big thing. So that used to trade in tandem, right? So you'd have gold if oil went up, for solar price went up, right? So I don't know if that's some of this knee jerk reaction here, but or solar still has a 30% plus short interest. Did the short sellers leave for the weekend already? And then there was no one to sell as we were going up. But just a monster move from about 140 or so all the way up to 230, actually a $3 jump from under $22, 24.66. I think as long as it holds $23 here, it's off the races next week. So another name, I just got to do more due diligence over the weekend. And then, frustrating day for some other names. Serve back under 11, 11 here. I'm thankful to be able to lock some of my calls in to cover costs. I'll continue to look at that one for some opportunities. I have, my Roku strikes pending. Who knows? It could be M&A next week. You never know. But I'll continue to look for that one. VKTX down 7% today, and it's actually off the lows. I'll continue to hold the July strikes and the August. I had already locked some of those in, but I'll continue to hold those. And that's about it. Again, hopefully everything kind of, comes to a simmer. Right now, things are boiling. Maybe it gets to a slow simmer, and then cooler heads prevail over the weekend, and things can get figured out to save face on both sides. Because usually when you have events like this, people want to save face. Iran doesn't want to look bad. Israel, I don't think Israel cares about looking bad. It just, to me, like I was saying it this morning, I'm like, how can you not know that there was an attack coming? Iran, with all the things that went on with the U.S. pulling people out of the Middle East on June 11th. How do you not know it's happened? And then when how can you defend it when it did happen? And then how do so it's like, obviously they're in a position that's not a good position. You're right. If Israel was able to do that, it doesn't look, there's reports that one of the one of the jets was shot down and someone was taken hostage. Who knows? All right, that's it, folks. Let's have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend. I'll be back. And don't forget, next week's 4-day week, and we get the Fed meeting on Wednesday. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.